National Archives, and it's called Picturing None. So it's a photographic exhibit. So these large and small images that you see came from Washington, D.C., and they were civilian photojournalists who took the pictures that you see. So the uniform that you see and the other objects in the middle of the floor, artifacts that you see, I curated from local people.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah, so we wanted to be able to tell a national story, but we always try to incorporate local people into the national story. Yes, yes.
And this has been going on, this exhibit is?
This exhibit opened November the 4th, and we had the Veterans Day parade, which was canceled because of bad weather, the rain. But we had a big celebration here for all of the veterans from West Baton Rouge Parish and also from East Baton Rouge Parish.
Great, great.
But it's Picturing Nam, and you can see the images are just very compelling.
I was 21 years old in Vietnam.
Hello.
I was 19, and I was on the USS.
And the day I got back,
Now, you told me your brother was
Yes, my brother was in Vietnam, and he actually worked. I don't guess they called it the morgue, but I don't know what exactly they called it. But he said he would fill out the paperwork whenever, people would be sent home. And he was only there. I think he was there for 6 months, but he said that was definitely long enough for him.
I'm not.
another name for them, like transfer cases or something like that. But they were put on pallets, 4x3 high, and we just filled the airplane up with pallets of those coffins to send back to the country. Then we'd unload planes coming in with live soldiers. Then ship them back with dead soldiers.
Yeah, Mr. Altazan received the Navy Cross, and he was a helicopter pilot, and so these are some of the medals that he earned while there, and he rescued, I think it's like 10 people getting out of the helicopter and rescuing them off the ground, getting them in the helicopter. He was here. He was the Grand Marshal for the parade.
Oh, great.
Mr. Altazan, so he's still living.
Good.
Yeah,
That was my next question.
yeah, so you can see all of the medals here, the names of the medals that he received. Let me call my brother and see if he's on.
This is fantastic.
I got more banged up in the United States than
My uncle went to, flew him out. He was him and the other dude died was the two surviving blacks World War II veterans that lived in New Orleans. And he's still kicking, he's 91.
Yeah, it's great.
And still doing it.
I mean, some of them, I guess, if you were what were you, 18?
I
You
was
drafted at 18?
I went in at 18.
So you were out of high school?
Right.
Right out of high school?
Yeah, right out of LSUNO.
Oh, okay. That's my brother Donald.
Hey, Donald, how you doing?
As you were.
Are you a veteran, sir?
No, I'm not.
no.
Mr. Francis?
Yes, sir. How are you?
Not Francois, Francis.
Well, it used to be Francois. We came from Canacro, and for some reason or other, they got
Who's
lost.
the councilman? I went to Haiti.
Terry Francois.
I know Terry Francois. And,
Yeah, in San Francisco, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So your sister was telling me about your Vietnam experience, and I just came to see.
But I really haven't really told her.
You haven't?
You know, I talk to soldiers, but I tell her about stuff.
You're
but-
marginalized.
Yeah, but I was with MacV, and we ran the war, and I was a courier for a period of time, where you go everywhere. And when I come back, Agent Orange, they told me, that I wasn't in the area. I said I was in the low core area, middle core area, and high core area. 38 years after that, they come up, I had non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. It's a form of cancer, 25 different things you can get from Agent Orange. But I was going there to try to get some money for PTSD.
Everybody I know.
Right.
And it took me, what, about 8 years. I said, you can ask anybody, and they'll tell you I'm crazy. And during that time, that's when they found out I had the lymphoma. And they wound up giving me 100% for the lymphoma, and they gave me 50% for PTSD. But after that, I discovered you can get 100% plus, and I show soldiers how to do it. If you get 160 points over 100% for ischemic heart, if you get diabetes, if it adds up to that, they give you more than 100%.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, well, that's what I've been trying to do with people here along the river, because a lot of people, because of education, there are billions of dollars probably go to waste because veterans don't go to school or don't use the loans and stuff.
So how's the veterans outreach up here?
Like anywhere else, I was messing with the Baton Rouge American Legion, and 8 years, and then somebody at my church told me they knew my brother. We owned a funeral home in Gonzales, and her husband went to school, and she worked for the VA, and she turned me on to the disabled veterans in New Orleans.
Okay.
And when I went there, I discovered there was somebody else that knew me, and I went to Hastings. I used to be a DA and tax lawyer and all that.
Now, what is your
And I never told them nothing about me being a lawyer while I was doing it, because I figured that'd make it worse. And I remember something my father told me. He said, Darren, sometimes you got to tell people who you are. And one day I said, man, he had a bunch of law books. He had gone to Loyola, but he hadn't passed the bar. I said, are you a lawyer? And he told me no, and he told me his story about passing the bar. And that day I told him who I was, because they said they didn't have no record of me being in Vietnam.
Right.
In St. Louis, the records place burned down in 1973, I think.
I heard about that.
But,
I heard about that.
I knew that they got to have microfiche somewhere, so I found a place in Connecticut and got my records. And from that, since that, within 90 days, they started paying me.
Okay.
As of last month, they started paying me the 100% plus.
Fantastic.
If they had paid me from when I came from Vietnam with the Agent Orange, it would have been $2.6 million.
I never tried to get anything.
Now, Donald, what is your full name?
Donald Hambrick.
Hambrick?
Donald L. Hambrick.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I went to do, I don't know if you know what it is, but we had a veterans stand down where all the veterans come together and they are given resources and they are directed in toward disability benefits like what you're talking about.
Wait, you were down here?
No, I live in San Francisco.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and they had it at San Francisco about 3 months ago.
Yeah, I used to go to Jones and Hyde every morning.
Is that right?
And I lived up,
Did they call it the Tenderloin then?
yeah, the Tenderloin. I lived at the Tenderloin. That's before the different genders, they were just coming in to San Francisco. When they were buying the Western Edition.
Right.
I used to live right up off of Fillmore and Gary.
Okay, all right.
The college in Kaiser used to be right up above me.
Okay, yeah. That's where Bill Graham's place is at on Fillmore and Gary Street now.
Well, yeah, who was it?
Fillmore West.
Fillmore West?
Who was the mayor?
At that time?
No, Johnny, not him, Dearden and Willie Brown.
Willie Brown.
Well, see, John Dearman's brother was a year after me at Hastings, and me and him studied together, and I'd go work up on Van Ness, where they moved their office.
John Dearman
became a judge.
A judge, yeah.
I didn't know Willie and Ina before he divorced, he married a white girl.
Well, hopefully they'll see this, because I'm taking this back to San Francisco to put on my cable TV show.
John Dearman and what's his brother's name?
I never did meet him.
No, but the girl that became the city attorney, Williams, she became the city attorney in Oakland. And the mayor used to be the head of legal services in San Francisco. The black Wilson, he used to be the head of legal services in San Francisco when I was going to law school, and we used to go volunteer and work there. Right down in the going to the Fillmore district. McAllister.
I see. Okay.
The Hallinans. All of them.
Now, what year were you?
Pay you more than 100%.
I had a good friend. We became paralegals helping veterans with bad discharges to get their discharges upgraded. He did so much with that he started saying, let me get some benefits for myself. And his goal was to get 100%. He finally got 100%. He started getting treated at the VA hospital, and before long he was dead. So I said, I'll never seek any treatment from the VA hospital.
Well, I'm gonna tell you something. There was a time when I lived in Los Angeles, I didn't want nothing to do with the Army, VA, or anybody. And I was working at his law office, and this guy, one day he had a bunch of potassium pills. I said, where we get all the potassium? He says, from the VA. I said, you go to the VA? He said, yeah. This before they changed it. The VA, they treat me for non-Hodgkin's lymphoma for 10 years, which is there are no traces of. And I go there, I don't pay nothing. I have a team of doctors, and time I want to call them or whatever. And then they have choice where you can have outside doctors. If I have something to be done, I go to Tulane Medical Center.
Makes sense?
Yeah, and that's part of the thing. There are millions of black soldiers that made billions of dollars that they don't take use of. Go to school. You ain't got to go to college. You can go learn to be a photographer, learn to fly air, do anything. Plus they got business loans that you qualify for. And you're never too old for benefits. That's when you need benefits.
Very good.
Yeah, when you get older.
I'm going to work on that.
Yeah. You in New Orleans?
Right.
The DAV is at 110 Porter Street, across from the...
And their wives, too. Wives and sisters. I've heard it from both perspectives.
Well,
Wives,
sure.
sisters.
Families have been affected, and we are still at war. I have a nephew who's been in Afghanistan. This is his third tour of duty.
They have long tours now, too.
It's crazy. It's crazy.
But it looks like Vietnam was a beautiful place before. This looks like Louisiana, so it seems like if you were a country boy.
But Vietnam was...
the landscape seems as if before the war it was really
We come up with the name Vietnam, but Vietnam used to be French Indochina.
Right.
French Indochina was the rice bowl of the world. They almost produced 80% of the rice. Selling rice was better than selling drugs. And that's why the French wanted it. And that's why they got into the war. But the battle of Dien Bien Phu is where they overran the French. And that's when we come in after that with Kennedy, with advisors to the war. And that's where the Special Forces came from. Instead of having a lot of soldiers, Special Forces is 12 men. Each one of them men can do everything that any of the other men, 12 men. So if you multiplied them and what their ability was, could blow up stuff, machine gun stuff. If you was a medic with Special Forces, you could do minor brain surgery. So instead of having 12 men, we would deploy these men. And 12 times 12 equal what? I think
144.
144 men. That's why Special Forces are so special.
Yeah, I've had quite a few of those guys in Special Forces too. I didn't know exactly what, Special Forces.
No, they cross-trained. And they would take them to places they have what they call mountain yards. Mountain yards are like the people in
What's that?
no, that's soldiers that don't have no bunker equipment to dig into. They were like native people.
Oh, okay.
And they would fight with the Americans, but they used crossbows and stuff. So if you had the mountain yards and you had a special forces unit, well, the Viet Cong didn't want to really mess with them. And the mountain yards didn't fight by Geneva Convention. You know what that is?
That's when you're supposed to follow the rules of war.
Yeah, in Vietnam, like, some could be called they shooting, and unless you, they give you a right to fire, you can't even fire back.
But special forces didn't have to follow those rules.
Special forces were just tunnel rat. And you go down that hole, and the Viet Cong put cobras, poison, all kind of stuff when you go out in that hole.
Yeah, a friend of mine was a truck because
But he's short, if you short.
he's like 5'2", he was a jockey before he went into the Marine, and that's what he did. 45, almost big.
Case right here, this is Alice LeBlanc. Her husband Chris LeBlanc was in Vietnam, and so you notice that he has a picture of a woman that he referred to as Mama Son. And so he said that from the village they would have a woman who would come, or women who would come and clean up the barracks and shine their boots and maids, yeah. But when I looked up Mama San, the definition of Mama San, it said a woman of authority.
Yes,
in the Vietnam.
The head of the household, or head of the household, ill repute.
Oh, either, what you say, either household, right?
Mama Sons, they knew everything. They get you credit. They knew in the military.
How many visitors have you had so far that you estimated?
Well, they, from what I understand, from the docents who are here on the weekend, they get a lot of visitors on the weekend, and they've seen a lot of helicopter pilots.
Is that right?
For some reason, that has been a group that has been really, really interested in this exhibit, helicopter pilots from all around.
There were a lot of jumpers in here.
And they left a lot too.
And it brought back memories when I was here for the Katrina evacuation.
was set of encyclopedias.
Oh, he did?
When he got back from Vietnam, my first set of encyclopedias.
Okay, all right.
No, it's all electronic, digital. Now everything's digital, but I still have that set of
Wait,
encyclopedias.
I know a whole bunch. I used to know a whole bunch of people in San
Love to
Francisco.
read the encyclopedias.
Clint White, Crookshank.
You know, San Francisco population is only 3% black now. So all those people are gone.
I know, it was red.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Who just one of your?
This is my cousin.
He lived there too?
No, he lives in New Orleans.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, he was in the Navy.
Gilbert.
He was in the Navy.
This is on loan to us by Mr. Mark Email. He owns the Army surplus
That's a flag jacket.
in Gonzales. They called it a chicken plate. And he said it was for helicopter pilots. And he said they would dare them, call them chicken if they wore them. And some of the guys refused to wear them because they didn't want to be called chicken. And he said those were some of the same men who ended up, young men who ended up being killed.
Yeah.
Flag jacket, ain't it?
But I had a pilot that was here 2 weeks ago. He said that they were too heavy for the infantrymen, the men on the ground. They were made for the men on the ground because they have a ceramic plate that was across the chest there.
Right.
So that's why they gave them to the helicopter pilots. He said, but
They didn't have to move around.
but the weight, they could take the weight in the helicopter. But he said, when you're in a helicopter, the bullets don't come at you this way; they come at you this way. So he would sit on his.
Smart man.
Yeah,
Smart
he said
man.
he would sit. He said he would sit on his.
That's an interesting story.
Get them bunkers because they got trapped.
So I've met a lot of really.
6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12.
12. That's number.
That's who.
This looks like another one.
That's a squad.
Look, this looks like a squad. This looks like we're here too. How many of them there?
What if you were a squad?
7, 8. That's 9.
I grew a line of
What movie was that? What he was showing?
Now, I left here in 1964, and they weren't doing that much fighting then. But it escalated. I got out in 66. I didn't really get out, but they put me out in 66.
You lucky, huh?
Oh, I was very lucky. I was extremely lucky, yeah.
They put me out overnight. I went back. You don't understand. I came from Vietnam like today, and I went back to school day after, 2 days from that in Los Angeles. And that's what they
So
told
they had
me.
you pre-registered
Well, I was trying to
and
tell them PSD. They would say, no, Mr. Hambrick, you came from Vietnam, went to college, went to law school. I said, that's the problem, goddammit.
Still had the PTSD.
They didn't know what PTSD was, then your shell shock when you came from the
That's what they
service.
still called it.
Now, how could I be, and then make you go in denial, because how could I be a shell shock lawyer? Who would I, a shell shock lawyer? So, you know, they laugh at you. Scout, Century, Tracker, boy, that was busy.
Very busy.
Your service made a difference. I ain't no patriot either.
The slave cabin. And the juke joint. I curated the juke joint. Yeah.
Before we do, I need to.
You want to go to the restaurant?
That's what the Viet Cong wore.
Oh, this was their footwear.
Yeah.
Okay, all right.
And some black pajamas and the AK-47. Bag of rice.
Seen that?
He was a terrible fellow.
Oh, yeah.
And see, you have two helmets when you're in the service. There's a shell. It's kind of light, like a football helmet. And then you have a metal thing, metal jacket. You put it on top. It weighs about 4 pounds. That full gear that you have weighs 55 pounds.
They made a movie about that, didn't they? Full Metal Jacket?
Metal jacket.
Yeah. Yeah.
But by the time you put that helmet on and you fill the canteen up with water, you got a pistol, a 14-pound rifle, and a backpack. Not none of these M16. But they would jam when they get wet and sand and mud.
This is the Vietnam exhibit here in West Baton Rouge's museum, and we're being given a tour by Miss Kathe Hambrick and her brother, Mr. Donald Hambrick, who we appreciate very much for their efforts in enlightening us.
You from my place? Yeah. You from Philadelphia? No. No, I have a brother named Donald Hambrick.
A part of his Vietnam story, he said he enlisted. That was interesting as I curated this exhibit to hear a number of men who say they enlisted rather than wait for the draft. So could you get an interview with Mr. Harold Evans?
Alabama.
I talked with Harold.
You got him on film too about that?
I enlisted also to get out of New Orleans.
Get out of the South.
Yeah, that's
what
what
they
I'm
do
doing.
in Alabama. Alabama have more enlisted people in the service than any other state.
Really?
Texas, Louisiana. Well, what you gonna do? You can't go to Southern. If you had a sister and you had 3 or 4 brothers, you'd send your sister to Southern, wasn't it?
Yeah.
And y'all go to work, and y'all marry a girl that works in the cafe. She meets somebody at Southern, and both of them are teachers and what. But that's just the inequities and the sociability, because we needed teachers, and the women, they kept spreading it somehow.
Exactly.
But that's you went and volunteered and enlisted. You say white boys didn't do that.
I've interviewed 5 who
They
all
don't
said
do that.
that in the rural
If they
area,
could go and join the reserves or go join the National Guard. We couldn't get in the National Guard. We couldn't get in the National Guard then. Now everybody
Here
here.
were you deployed to Vietnam?
Okay, I went to Vietnam. I had 8 months left in the service, and I was a company clerk down in Fort Knox. It was about 14 degrees. And I had separated my shoulder playing football when I first went to the service. And they gave me the option to have it operated on. And I could have it operated on any time while I was in the service. So when I first was getting orders to go to Vietnam, I opted to go have my shoulder. So they fixed my shoulder. I had a acromion clavicular separation. It's a common quarterback when everybody tumble on you.
Right.
And so I wound up with 120 days. I was an ambulatory patient at the hospital at Fort Ord, and they let me go home because I couldn't do anything. I had to wear this weighted cast with a strap to pull my clavicle back.
Could keep it pulled up.
So I was in the service. I was drafted for 24 months. I did about 19 months, and I had 110 days that I had leave as a medical patient, and I'd be in Los Angeles. And when I got orders, the first time when I got my orders, it was as a grenadier, and I just finished some basic training, and they were sending me to Panama.
Oh, okay.
And my the sergeant, first sergeant, and I was in a place where all of the other troop that was there for basic training was from the National Guard, from Kentucky, Tennessee. There were 2 black guys, me and a guy named Harold, that worked for IBM, because we couldn't go into the National Guard like the volunteer army. We go as draftees.
Oh, okay.
And so I speak my piece. And I thought these white boys hated my guts. But when they were going home that next Monday, and the boy that was the sergeant over the training, and me and him used to have it. And this is a true story. That night when they saw my orders, because I was a draftee going to Panama, all them white boys that I've been having it with came up to my room that night. And they had a prayer meeting. And I couldn't argue with it because they were going home and I was going to Panama. And they prayed and everything and whatever. We got into it. And the next morning when I awakened, the first sergeant sent somebody to see me and say the captain told me to go over to the hospital and see a colonel. He gave me a profile. And so that's how I didn't go to Panama as a grenadier. I wound up going to Fort Knox as a company clerk.
Oh, okay.
And that's where that's where I went and got the operation. And I had 8.5 months. They say you don't go to Vietnam unless you had 10 months. That's a lie. They sent me to Vietnam, And I was with Mac V, lived downtown Saigon, right by the embassy in a hotel for the first about 3 weeks. But we used to go to the wharf to work. And we used to ride these army buses with the screens. But the Vietnamese started throwing satchel charges on the bus. So I volunteered to go upstate, and they sent me to Quy Nhon. And I stayed there for a while. And in the end, they sent me up to not in the train, it's another Phu Hip, up on right above Cam Bay. There was 7 of us. We ran the airport, Mac V. Like everything that happened at the airport, the Army ran it. And I went one day for a promotion, and there was a black colonel, Colonel Simonson. And that was my first time seeing a man that big, less known. He had that full burden. He had with the little tams, the beret. He had the beret, and he had a Screaming Eagle 101st, and he had about 8 hash marks for combat. And I was sitting out in front of his office that day waiting to get a helicopter to go back to my unit. And he told me, he said, Hambrick, why don't you come in and talk to me? So I went in and I was going to say, he said, oh man, sit down. And he started talking to me, and I tell him a joke or whatever, and he said, Hambrick, what did you do before you come here? I said, I was in college. He said, you want to go back to college? I said, don't be, he was the colonel. I wanted to say, man, don't be playing with me. And he got up and got a book in the Army regulation and told me to read that regulation. He said, you prepare this, I will sign it for you to go back to college. I called my wife and told her that next couple of days and got ready to go back to college. And they accepted me. And when they accepted me to go to college, I sent it up to Colonel Simonson, and he told me I'd be out of there for September the 16th, 1968. And I hadn't heard anything from him, and September was coming, and our radio phone operator, them ding, ding, ding,
Right.
he said, Hambrick, let me call the commander. I said, you can't call. Our commander was General Abrams. After Westmoreland, Abrams became the commander of the war.
Right.
And I said, you crazy. And he kept on, and he finally got his sergeant major, General Abrams, sergeant major, and told him the story about Colonel Simonson, and I had filed these papers, and come to find out they had a first sergeant, a guy from Alabama, Dickensheep, and he didn't do something. But I talked to General Abrams, the head of the war in Vietnam, and he said, I knew Colonel Simonson. He says he was medevaced to Vietnam. He got malaria. He says he was a friend of mine, and I'm going to stand by his word. He says I'm going to have my people to check the Pentagon, and my papers was there. And I was a laughing stock everywhere I went. They say, hey, Hambrick, I thought you'd be at Harvard. You know, it's like, and better enough worry about dying every day.
Yeah.
And that particular day, the guy came to get me. I was out on the South China Sea drinking. Me and my best buddy, a white boy named Pinard, he was from Canada, New Hampshire. He joined the war because he wanted to get his citizenship. And he met me, and he said, Hambrick, as long as you're here, I'm going to stay here with you. And me and then you saw him, you saw me. And that day, the guy come to tell me, because they'd be joking me, telling me I could go home all the time. And Pinard said, man, leave the man alone. He ain't got no time for this. And the guy said, no, you can go home. He was pleading. And Pinard locked and loaded on him. He said, I told you to leave the man alone. And he drove off, but he drove off real slow. And I was saying something like, and that night when I went back to my hooch, you know, we lived in hooches on the beach.
Right.
And everybody was quiet. And then somebody said, he don't know. And I said, don't know what? And they say, Hambrick, you can go home. And my first lieutenant had come, and he had a teletype from General Abrams telling me to turn in all of my gear and proceed to Cam Bay. and if I could get to Tonsonnoop for 11:30, I could go home.
Oh my God.
I turned in all my stuff except for 45 because I used to be a courier. You know what that is?
You carry the mail and
Not mail.
messages?
I carry orders that they didn't want to transmit with a briefcase with a handcuff and a 45.
Okay.
I kept my 45 and got my tennis rackets. I'd go play tennis with the pilots, the Air Force people, and I proceeded on my way from Vietnam. I left Vietnam, that night I left where I was. It was September the 12th, 1968, a Thursday. And that night when we got to Tonsonnoop, when we were flying in, it was under siege, mortars and rockets. So the guy said, man, I don't know what. And he got called and we land like stealth out in a dark area. And then I went to headquarters. They told me I couldn't leave there that night unless I had to go to Long Binh. Long Binh was like 25 miles from Saigon.
Right.
And they had a mine road because, they sweep the road up until about 8 o'clock. And he said, if you get a driver and a gunner, a M60 guy be on the back of that. And it just so happened the guy came to Vietnam was walking down the hall while I was sitting there wondering how I was going to get out of there. Because in Vietnam, when it's time to go, because there's so many people you hear about that was leaving and got killed. He said, Hambrick, what you doing here, man? I ain't seen you since we come. And the white boy told me. And I said, white boy. Because, I have my feelings about all of this. And I told him the story, and he said, wait here for a minute, and I'm going to go see if I can find somebody. He went and found another young white boy, about 17, 18, cowboy. He had dried ears on a string around his neck, real cowboy. And he said he'd go. And they took me out there. And that night at about 11:45, I got on the airplane, left Vietnam. I can remember the pilot. When you take off, he tell you, on behalf of a grateful nation and the president, I'd like to thank you for your efforts to preserve and spread democracy around the world. So,
and your date of departure was?
It was, I left there, it was September the 12th, 1968. But when you fly from west to east, you gain a day.
Right.
Went to Yokota, Japan. And after leaving there, we flew up along the Aleutian Islands, Russia, Aleutian Islands, to Anchorage. And while we were flying from Japan to Anchorage, the pilot says, gentlemen, you're going to go through a phenomena that a lot of people don't get to experience. We went into Friday the 13th, 1968. And then we flew out of it, because when you get to California, you're back in Friday the 13th. So
you had it twice.
I went through Friday the 13th twice, coming home from Vietnam.
Well, I'm glad you
I left Vietnam on a Thursday. School started on September the 16th. I went to school that Monday morning. And I finished college. And I got accepted to law school, but I was applying to go to Syracuse, and I got accepted to Syracuse to get a PhD and a master's in a 2-year program. But my wife had just got accepted to UCLA. No, Berkeley, one of them. And so she'd have to be out of state, and that's why I decided to go to Hastings. I accepted and went to Hastings, which was probably one of the better experiences of my life.
That's a good school.
Excuse me for my tear.
That's okay. That's all right. I understand. Now you're saying, Kathe, it's called what?
It's called, the exhibit is called Washboard City, and the artist is Malika Favorite. She's a native of Ascension Parish. She was the first student to integrate schools at Dutchtown High School in Ascension Parish in 1968. She has a master's in fine art from LSU, and so she created this exhibit just for the museum. It's called Washboard City. Her washboards are in the Atlanta airport. They're at the National Underground Railroad Museum.
When I first looked at it, I thought it was a primitive art because it's folk art type.
Yeah, well, it's folk art, yes.
I didn't realize.
Like Haiti, if they have perfect. See you, Kathe.
Okay. I'll show Zenith the juke joint.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, he'll block this one.
As the young lady just told us, this exhibit is called washboards. I don't know if you know what a washboard is, but I used to watch my grandmother use them all the time. Very, very creative.
Didn't know I was going. I'm serious. And we went with the Wild Magnolia.
Okay.
On an old school bus.
Okay.
And they said we was going to a gig, and that was when Quinn Davis, before the Jazz Fest and everything, was really big. And they said everybody, you know, you got a whole bus, anybody wanted to wind up staying out there for 3 days.
Okay.
That was the summer after I graduated from high school.
Kathe, you say you put all this together?
Yeah, one of my first assignments here when I came to work here a year and a half ago was to turn this old building into a juke joint. It was a Boy Scout hut that had been abandoned for over 30 years. But you know, juke joints were traditionally made from other types of buildings. You didn't really build a juke joint. A juke joint was an old house. It was an old house, an old shack that was turned into a nightclub. So that's basically what we did with this old Boy Scout hut, was turned it into a juke joint.
And what a job you did, man. Y'all ever party in here?
Oh yeah, we have free blues concerts.
Man,
Yeah. So we had Lil Jimmy Reed here last Christmas for a Christmas party. We had Henry Gray played here. Actually played the piano.
Oh man.
We've had Kenny Neal plays here regularly for Sugarfest. Lil Ray Neal, Henry Turner. We had
He's still alive.
Still alive. He played on that piano about 6 months ago.
And all this is in Port Allen, Louisiana, folks. In case you ever get to Port Allen, be sure and come by and check this out.
I don't know if you came. It was Nash's birthday party.
Yes, I was there. That's where we met.
Yeah, that's true. It is.
Yeah.
That's fantastic.
Played for the party.
Yeah.
I like that. That's very nice.
So, Slim Harpo, who you see standing there beside the piano, is actually from West Baton Rouge Parish. He's from a little community called Lobdell, and he's buried in a cemetery in a place here called Mulatto Bend. And when you go, it's about 2 miles from here. And when you go there to his grave, there's harmonicas. There's about 25 people come from all over the world.
And drop off
and put harmonicas on his gravesite. Yes, so
Slim Harpo.
Slim
Okay.
Harpo.
All right.
You know, a lot of the rock and roll music. You know, come here. I want to show you this. This is a quote from Mick Jagger that I found, and he said, "You can say that we did the blues to turn people on, but why they would be turned on by us is unbelievably stupid. I mean, what's the point in listening to us doing I Am a King Bee when you can hear Slim Harpo do it?" Because that was Slim Harpo's original song. So rock and roll evolved from the juke joints. So one of the things when you look at this old jukebox, wall jukebox, somebody asked me, they said, "Well, why do you have this in here? Because it doesn't have music that was played in juke joints." So if you look at this music, you'll see Elvis Presley, Patsy Cline. You might find a song here and there by one of the traditional bluesmen like Slim Harpo, But this actually came out of a honky-tonk.
A honky tonk.
So you didn't have white juke joints.
No, you had honky tonks.
You had honky-tonks. Because blacks
I never put that together till just now.
blacks could not go into the white establishment. They could play music there, but they could not drink and socialize in the white joints that were typically called honky-tonks. But whites could go into juke joints and listen to music. Now, from what I've been told in
It's like
many
the
of
Cotton Club in Harlem. We couldn't go there.
right, yes,
Unless you worked there.
unless you work there, yes, yes.
Well, this has certainly been a pleasurable visit. Thank you for all the information you've shared with us. And I hope to get back to see you again soon,
Yes, yes, yes.
before next year, but we'll see what happens. This was an original slave cabin, and we're going to take a look around and see what slaves used to live in and how they lived.
Yeah, do a whole lot of other stuff that was going on.
Right. But yeah, so this is an authentic cabin from the Allendale plantation. They had 122 people enslaved. And we moved this cabin here. Allendale plantation was about 4 miles from here. And so when you come into this room, you can actually hear the voices of people who were enslaved that were interviewed by the Workers' Progress Administration.
Steal away.
Oh, this is a song.
Steal away. Steal away.
That's a
To
nightgown.
Jesus. Steal away.
And they had the nets for the mosquitoes.
Steal away. Home. I got
This lady who sing the song is from Point Computer, Mr. Kirby is from New Roads.
Steal away.
My great grandmother.
Steal away. Steal away. To Jesus.
So these are the names of the people who were enslaved.
Steal away.
At Allendale.
And Allendale.
And Westover. Allendale and Westover.
I was telling them on the driving, I just saw, I was somewhere, I'm trying to remember what magazine they talked about. And outside of Natchez, the Punch Bowl,
The Devil's Punch.
Devil's Punch Bowl. I said, oh Lord, I never knew that. And I just found that out, I want to say last week. Well, I mean,
That story says
it was
cheap.
something online, but I was reading because
That's tobacco, Gilbert. That's tobacco. Tobacco was grown in St. James Parish. And the Native Americans actually showed the Europeans how to grow that tobacco.
and cultivate tobacco. And spread all over Europe.
But tobacco wasn't a cash crop for Louisiana. Of course, it was indigo, rice, and sugar.
Yeah, we did the sugar last year. Fascinating. And these are some of the chains, I suppose.
Well, we have a blacksmith who works here, so I had him make those.
Oh.
We actually have a blacksmith who does blacksmithing here, and we have an internship,
So we got a
apprenticeship.
blacksmith shop on the premises? Oh, that's cool.
And a carpenter shop where we teach children about the basics of carpentry.
That's what everybody had to know.
This is Henry Watkins Allen. He owned the Allendale plantation. He was the governor of Louisiana at the end of the Civil War. Port Allen is named after him. Don Lemon is from here.
Right.
And Debbie Allen's family is from here.
Allen, now that's related to the ex-governor Allen after Huey P. Long.
This one, he was
Okay.
governor in 18.
No,
He
that
was
was
governor,
long time.
yeah.
Because I remember when Huey Long couldn't run for governor no more, and did the senator thing, and he had, that was his like appointed though. He ran and they voted for him, but that was because Kingfish still had his office right in the Capitol that he built.
So now you hear Steal Away in Creole French. Because in Point Capee, Mr. Kirby speaks Creole French.
Oh, is that right?
He could have actually talked to you, yes, in Creole French.
I was given a book recently at Amistad Research Institute called Gumbo People. And there's quite a bit of Creole in there that I've heard before, but I don't know what they're saying.
Oh yeah, Mr. Kirby speaks it very fluently, yes.
Very
And
fantastic.
he's from the island side of New Roads in Point Capee Parish. They call it the island side.
Okay.
The island side of
that's
Falls
where they
River.
had, Falls River, yeah. That's where they had the festival, Celebration of Life.
They need to bring that back. I like the name of that.
It didn't last. It was supposed to be for 7 days. It was a rock festival, like Woodstock. Yeah. Yeah. Sly and the Family Stone, B.B. King was there. They had the Wild Magnolia went there to perform. And Quint, at that time, Quint Davis was the manager for the Wild Magnolia. And he just pulled up at the bar and anybody want to go to the gig? He just jumped in the bus and next thing you know, he was in Point QP.
See, here's the juke joint here. You can see the other side of the juke joint. That also came from Allendale. So we do Sugar Fest here, which is a big sugar festival with blues and all kinds of music.
When is that?
It's always the first Saturday in October.
Well, Ms. Hambrick, we certainly
Okay.
appreciate your knowledgeable tour. This has been beautiful. Good to see you again. May God bless you, and I will try to definitely get to Donaldsonville for your event.
And I want to say in closing, welcome to the West Baton Rouge Museum. It's really been a great opportunity for me to bring my skills as a curator and interpreter here to West Baton Rouge Parish in Port Allen. And as you can see, we have an authentic slave cabin and sharecropper house.
You got everything here, man. I see it.
And so as we interpret this difficult time in our history, we want people to leave understanding that music is the ultimate expression of freedom. So our tours end at the juke joint.
Fantastic.
Yes.
Thank you, ma'am.
Yes.
Have a good one.